Sports Professor Rick Horrow. Welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard, the show that goes inside the trillion-dollar-plus business of sports. And what a week it's been. A little fallout after Serena Williams, golf FedEx Championship on the verge of completion. Then the Ryder Cup, NFL after week 2, college after week 3, Major League Baseball 2 weeks before the playoffs, hockey and basketball starting. If you want to see all of the list of all of the topics, the top 15 in news, the top 5 in philanthropy and charity, the top 5 in tech, look at NBCWashington.com, at Rick Horrow, HorrowSports.com. We've got them all. We've also got the top 3 here in our text. But more is deeper, and deeper gives you some incentive in a quick 10-minute look of all of the business issues in sports. You can also, by the way, subscribe to our podcast on Apple, iTunes feed. Look for Stitcher, Google Play, Audio Boom, a whole bunch of places as we go forward. Interesting NFL executive today, the Indianapolis Colts, Pete Ward, who's been the CEO for many years, talks about Andrew Luck, charity, the Colts, and a lot of other NFL issues. But first, let's talk about some things that are on top of mind, especially in Carolina. Hurricane Florence, we know it's a lot of things, but it's not a sports fan. Destruction and loss of life caused by Florence not reached the level of Harvey and Katrina. Sports entities in the Carolina and beyond have felt Flo's impact. The chaos caused by Florence saw a half dozen college football games in the Mid-Atlantic states canceled or moved. Clemson's 38-7 home win over Georgia Southern came in the face of a reported $2 million loss by canceling the contest, and Virginia chose to move its home game against Ohio 500 miles northwest to Nashville rather than forfeiting a home game opportunity. On the NFL front, the Panthers, playing out of harm's way in Atlanta, taking a multi-pronged approach to relief efforts that include the first contacts with nonprofits, many of whom David Tepper and the team had worked with in the past. And according to the Charlotte Observer, NBA Hornets owner and North Carolina native Michael Jordan urging the team's fans to donate to relief funds in response to the impact of Hurricane Florence. And by the way, other issues there. The bottom line is that natural disasters such as Harvey and others continue to inspire. Remember, hurricane victims J.J. Watt began a page on You Caring to fund money, $32 million, $100,000 donation from Watt himself. Hometown athletes like Michael Jordan and David Tepper do make a difference. Teams, leagues, and athletes are there to help in the wake of disaster, providing much-needed morale boosts and, by the way, dollars. SEC College Football Week 3, let's take that top of line. Forbes' annual college football program valuation, the SEC currently boasts 5 of the country's top 10 most valuable programs from a financial perspective, led by Texas A&M. The Aggies have revenues of $148 million and a profit of $107 million last year. And despite not being in the conference's most successful number 1 or number 2 positions, A&M's rise to the top been fueled by its move to the SEC in 2012 and contributions for massive renovations and expansion of Kyle Field. Other SEC schools, Alabama, number 4, $127 million in revenue, Auburn, 8, $112 million, LSU, 9, $112 million, and Florida, number 10, $111 million. Texas moved to second on the list. Michigan came in third, and Ohio State, top 5. And by the way, moving into week 4, the SEC continues to dominate on the field as well. Obviously, the teams stack up. Alabama 1, Georgia 2, LSU 6, Auburn 5, Auburn 9, all hailing from the SEC. Well, let's talk pro football, and let's get into our guest. The biggest issue has been ratings, eyeballs, and where they are. Sports Business Journal says the league's ratings are being closely observed and scrutinized by financial analysts in the country's financial capital. We continue to believe the NFL is the single biggest swing factor for media earnings and valuation, read a research note from Moffett-Nathanson. Any sign of continued NFL ratings weakness could pose a long-term risk for broadcasters who may be forced to bid up for rights. broadcast industry analysts cited that numerous media rights packages are currently overvalued, which could have a direct impact on the next wave of negotiations between the league and its broadcast partners if ratings continue to decline this season. Disney's, ESPN's current Monday Night Football package, has a cost rating point ratio that is 260% to 400% more expensive than any other package. CBS, Fox, and NBC each spend about $1 billion annually in rights fees, while ESPN spends a reported $1.9 billion for Monday Night Football. That's not the only issue. Protests, games, ties now everybody's talking about, but the bottom line is the NFL is the unique and singular juggernaut among all football, college or pro. Pete Ward, the chief operating officer of the Indianapolis Colts, has entered his 38th season with the team, promoted to COO in 2010. He was a club senior executive vice president since 2001. He began his affiliation with the Colts, by the way, in 1981 as a summer and seasonal intern in the team's PR department. Boy, how about this? He graduated from University of Virginia in 1982, hired as a club's administrative assistant, promoted as the director of operations shortly after they moved to Indy in March of 1984, then VP of administration in 1997, and he's also been hands-on with Lucas Oil Stadium. When you think of all of the executives in the NFL with much perspective and many charitable and philanthropic obligations and issues, Pete Ward leads the list. Here's Pete Ward. Sports professor Rick Horrow, inside the boardroom, beyond the scoreboard, the top industry leaders in the business of sports, and we start with the ultimate top, the COO of the Indianapolis Colts. He started as an intern in 1981, and look what he's done now. He's been with the Colts since 2001, the senior vice president since 2001, with the Colts since 1981. That's a missed 20 years. Pete Ward, how are you? Those 20 years probably just flew by, didn't they? Yeah, really. So you've been basically with the Colts and Jim Irsay longer than almost anybody alive. What's your perception of the evolution of the brand?
Wow, the game has changed a lot. You know, when we moved from Indianapolis to, from Baltimore to Indianapolis, our coaching staff consisted of 8 people, and our front office was about 15 people. And now we're up to 195 full-time employees and 20-some coaches. So the game has become more complicated. Certainly, marketing has become more of an element with NFL teams. Back when I started, fans are going to come. You know, it's a great game. We're king. Fans are going to come. And the world is changing, and to give owners the credit, they recognize that. And our owner, specifically, when he took over the team in 1997, saw that we needed to put more effort into taking care of our fans and being involved in our community.
Well, as important, it's a different kind of animal of a team moving in. You probably have some advice for Mark Davis and Vegas as the team relocates, and you have some advice for the old Oilers, new Titans. What's it like to build a brand basically from the ground up, moving into a city for the first time?
Well, I'll tell you what, they don't write a book on that.
And that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, and certainly was a learning experience for me because we came to town with a skeleton staff, and so there wasn't enough time in a day to do everything. We could have worked 24 hours a day for a year and still not have accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. So my advice to Mark Davis is don't do it the way we did it, because I had 5 hours notice before we actually moved. And so it was an exciting time, but I wouldn't want to do it again.
And so you're entrenched in the community. You've been entrenched in the community and will continue to be. And the more you realize what the brand of Indianapolis is, it transcends other markets. Amateur sports capital of the world, Eli Lilly, then the Colts, the Pacers, All-Star games, NCAA. What makes Indy so special?
You know what? It's the culture of collaboration, I think. And that's something that we noticed when we first came. Honestly, if it weren't for the sports initiative in Indy, we would be in Phoenix or LA or someplace else, because we came here, they had built a stadium with no team to play in that stadium, and so it was waiting for us when we moved. So it's just an intimate, small town feel, even though it's a big city. All the advantages of a big city, but people work together, and it's always been that way. And it continues today with attaining these huge events like the College National Championship and Final Fours and the NBA All-Star Game.
And Sports Corp is part of the glue that puts it together. Yeah. But as far as best practices are concerned, any market can say they aspire to do that. How did Indy get that done, and other markets just talk about it?
Again, it's just a unique culture in Indianapolis and Indiana. Like people come together and get things done for the community, and so it is really special, and we're fortunate to be here.
Mega events, sports says mega events. You got the Combine every year. What does the Combine mean to you and mean to the city?
Well, it's huge to the city. It's become a bigger and bigger event, and over 1,000 media come in for that. So it's an economic impact factor. But aside from that, it's the perfect location, the perfect setting, with the stadium being connected to the hotels and the convention center. It's the perfect scenario for the Combine, and it's been here for so long. The medical resources, the people that know how it's done, you can't find a better spot.
People at Radio City Music Hall said the draft was here for so long it's going to continue to stay, and people were asleep at the switch, and now the NFL has a tremendously successful mobile property, Dallas, Philly, Chicago, otherwise. Will the Combine be on the list of mobile assets, or is Indy fight hard to make sure that it stays where it is?
Well, it remains to be seen. When the contract is up in 20, there's nothing planned for the future. So we'll see. I know that the city will put its best foot forward in trying to retain such a significant event.
Let's talk philanthropy. You're the chairman of a major cancer initiative in Indianapolis. Have been. The issue of doing the right thing is always in the forefront. Everybody talks about statistics. You can ask why you do it. But how important is philanthropy to the brand, to ROI, and you and the Colts personally?
Well, honestly, it's important for every team to be involved in the community and give back, and that it starts with that, but goes beyond that, and it starts with leadership. There are things that our ownership does that they don't need to do in terms of, keeping our fans engaged. We feel like we're an important, thread to this community, and it goes beyond giving back. It's wanting to make a difference and make this a better place to live. This is our home. It goes beyond, keeping fans in our seats. It's making this a better community, stronger community.
But you've also got corporate partners who also believe in all of that. There are major corporations in this community that are making a simultaneous commitment to philanthropy as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and we like to partner with them. And again, it goes back to Indianapolis and people collaborating to do significant things to make the community stronger.
Here's a broad question, not a softball, but a broad question. In your mind, as we sit here in 2018, is the NFL going in the right direction?
I think the NFL is going in the right direction. We're certainly learning. We're taking some punches.
Fair.
But it's way too soon to think that the sky is falling. We've taken some hits in TV ratings, but it's still a huge fan base and a huge following, and you can't really judge it based on the last two seasons. And I think that. It's such a great game, and run by some smart, people. The ownership is smart, and the NFL's legacy is, again, working together and collaborating, and so, we think that we're in a pretty strong position for the future.
Agree or disagree, regardless of the specific substantive outcomes of some of these major issues, the kneeling issue, some of the union issues, a lot more introspection, a lot more analysis, as you said, a lot more collaboration, a lot more concern with taking the time to make the right decisions.
No question. Yeah. It's a changing world, and we've got to be proactive. We've got to be ahead of the curve instead of reactionary. And I think that we've been reactionary on some things, and it's and we've learned that lesson. So we're working with the future in mind.
As we speak about evolving, where are we, NFL and others, going on the whole gambling issue?
That's a good question. We're still feeling our way through it. It's certainly a huge, the potential is huge in a lot of ways, and we have to look at protecting, first of all, protecting the integrity of the game and protecting and make sure the consumers are protected. We have to be, really on top of it, because it can be a double-edged sword. But I think it's being looked at as a huge positive, particularly from a fan engagement standpoint. So we're hoping that Congress will put in place some uniform standards, across all the states that we can abide by and go from there.
TBD. It's a long process.
No question.
Yeah. Esports. Where is there are leagues that are. Adam Silver gets up in a press conference to say we're welcoming our new athletes. I'm not sure as an old guy that's an athlete, but that's not for me to say. Where's that whole process?
Well, it's a growing sport, and on the league level, the league is taking steps to become engaged with esports. They had recently hosted the Madden Club Championships. On a local level, we're still looking at it. We haven't invested in an esport team like my friend Jim Morris and the Pacers have, but we're looking at it and looking at ways that we can be engaged.
I could ask it this way, but you're not as old as I am, but 30 years ago, if you were talking about investing in an esports team, would people have thrown you out of the boardroom? I mean,
they would say, "What's esports?"
Right? Clearly,
yeah, but it's no question it's popular with millennials, and millennials are a priority for all of us.
Where is the NFL the biggest challenge for the league, and where is the league in 5 years? Kind of a two-parter.
Well, I think it's going to be, millennials are changing this game. They're our future ticket holders, and so we're doing things at the league level to change the game. We're making it more streamlined. We're engaged. We've got this huge social media staff at our complex now that is totally invested on keeping millennials engaged. We're again on the league level. We're distributing our content differently through social media, digitally. We've got the Thursday night games, which are going to be distributed on Amazon Prime, in addition to NFL Network and the networks. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes to engage millennials. And the interesting thing is, though, recent Nielsen studies showed that millennial following of the NFL has increased from 2016 to 2017. So that's a good sign.
Good sign. Final question.
Yeah.
You've been at this, well, I don't know how long it's going to take you to get it right. You've been at this for 37 years, basically?
This will be my 38th season. Yeah.
Sorry, I got to keep that right. 38 years.
Yeah.
So how many more decades for Pete Ward and the Colts?
I'm shooting for 3 minimum.
3 more decades?
But,
Good for
honestly,
you.
I think as long as I love it, I'll keep going, and as long as they want me. So that's the key.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Pete Ward, and if he lasts for 68 years in the organization, I want to eat what he's eating and drink what he's drinking. Pete, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
Okay.
Pete's been the chairman of Indiana University Melvin and Bryn Simon Cancer Development Center. He leads the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. Visit Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce, on and on and on. Certainly a great NFL executive, but also a key member of the community. A lot of perspective to be learned from Pete Ward. Let's talk about some other sports now. Let's get off of football for a minute, and we talk about baseball. As the postseason nears, MLB continues its September celebration of Hispanic heritage. MLB once again commemorates Hispanic Heritage Month with a slate of events and efforts designed to spotlight the contributions to baseball by Hispanic and Latino players throughout the month of September. The Bronx Stickball Classic, a new youth-focused stickball tournament in the shadow of Yankee Stadium, special MLB Network vignettes highlighting Latino stars in the game today, social and digital content across MLB's bilingual platforms, and an in-park club celebrations. MLB, by the way, also debuted new media platforms designed to provide real-time quality content to the Spanish-speaking Hispanic and Latino audience. In parallel, baseball's minor league players also looking to gain some foothold as they continue their issues in 160 markets across North America. But by the way, it's not just the off-field honoring of people, but it's also the in the stands success. The Brewers already looking toward October as they continue their quest for the playoffs. The unexpectedly good season thus far has left team executives anticipating a banner year for merchandise sales, season ticket renewals, and keeping fans engaged. The team attendance at Miller Park is set to exceed 2.8 million this season, up 200,000 from last year, and the best figure since the club's 2011 playoff performance. And despite not having clinched a playoff spot yet, the Brewers have begun selling playoff tickets to existing season ticket holders who renew for 2019 and to fans who sign up as new season ticket holders. This year's performance is that much more impressive when you take into account how strong the NL Central has been all season. The division likely to snag both NL wildcard spots, but it's going to be really tight until the end. And obviously the Brewers capture Milwaukee's sports scene, at least until the Packers start the second half of their season. Well, there are other issues, too, like digital bobbleheads with the Dodgers. It's unbelievable. They're holding their first ever digital bobblehead night on September 21 on that weekend, when fans have the opportunity to download a Clayton Kershaw, Justin Turner, or Kenley Jansen crypto token, the team announced. Promotion is the first of its kind in Major League Baseball and believed to be the first crypto giveaway in sports. The first 40,000 ticketed fans in attendance receive a card with a unique code and directions to a website where a digital bobblehead can be unlocked and added to their wallet, their Ethereum wallet. The left coast continues to be known for its innovation, and the Dodgers, with their solid seasoned ownership, no exception. But unbelievable. Here we are with cryptocurrency tying into bobbleheads. Well, let's talk about NHL just for a second, because we are close to awarding a franchise probably in Seattle. But city officials stated they won't allow the team to demolish Key Arena until they're guaranteed the team. The developers are asking for it, and the city says, you guarantee the team, then we're going to tear it down. The $700 million renovation of the iconic arena expected to make the venue a top third revenue producer for both the NHL and NBA, though the city wants to delay any construction at the site until the league's executive committee signs off on the new team. December currently being eyed as the start date for Key Arena's total demolition, which is speculated to be the latest date possible to allow the renovation to be finished by October 2020. We're focused on and expect to be ready for 2020-2021 should the season approval be given, said Oakview Group CEO Tim Lewicki. Should that direction from the NHL change, we're prepared to move to 2021-2022. And just like the American midterm elections, all should be known by early November. Well, let's talk soccer as we look at all of the things that are happening globally with it. First of all, at home, MLS All-Star Game heads to Orlando. They formally announced the 2019 All-Star date, hosted at Orlando City Stadium, though an opponent and exact date not talked about yet. The second time in MLS history, Orlando has the event, previously held at the Citrus Bowl, now Camping World Stadium. And the 2018 game in Atlanta drew a record 72,000 fans. The 2019 edition won't draw anywhere near that, but MLS Commissioner Don Garber told Pro Soccer USA and the assembled media Camping World Stadium never in consideration. The All-Star Game venue decision mimics the widespread trend of MLS clubs playing in proper soccer stadiums. Bigger is not always better. A few miles to the northwest, Nashville. The first season in 2020, the expansion MLS franchise still lacks an official name. Bringing the new MLS team to fruition takes a significant amount of work, and it takes years in the making, but time is ticking for Nashville's top-tier soccer franchise to finalize business. We're trying to be uniquely Nashville, but be ourselves and build something that's right for the city and the league, said National MLS CEO Ian Ayre. The club is hoping to use the downtown Nissan Stadium, home of the NFL Titans, in its inaugural season while the soccer-specific stadium is being built, and many expect the club to be named Nashville SC, the current name of the city's USL club, but that's not been confirmed. And entering the league in 2 years will also be an expensive venture for the ownership group, having to pay a $150 million expansion fee while also funding part of the new $275 million stadium. And finally, stadiums and soccer. Not cheap these days, but it's costing Tottenham, the Premier League Hotspurs, significantly more than it ever expected. Tottenham's new $1.11 billion White Hart Lane is still behind schedule, and the team is being forced to play games at Wembley until construction is complete. In order to expedite the already delayed building process, Tottenham paying construction workers as much as $5 million per week, 50% more than the club pays its players. And just last month, at the peak of the building process, as many as 3,800 workers were on site around the clock. Industry publication Construction Inquirer calculated that on average, workers at White Hart Lane were being paid $1,305 per week over a period in August. The construction of the facility also impacts the NFL, which just has a long-term contract to play at least one game at the stadium going forward. Just like Tottenham, the NFL will play those games at Wembley now. And then finally, let's stay international and talk about the Olympics. Details regarding Calgary's 2026 bid are finally coming to light. The committee currently exploring a bid for the Canadian city, relying heavily on upgrading existing facilities to bring them up to Olympic standards instead of building from scratch. A few new venues will need to be built regardless, but current infrastructure in Calgary and other Canadian cities expected to constitute the bulk of the facilities. The committee wants to keep the cost less than what Vancouver spent in 2010, 7.7 billion Canadian. The draft hosting plan concept estimates a cost at about 5.2 billion, and organizers predicting 2.2 billion in sponsorship revenue, ticket sales. IOC's pledged to contribute 1.2 billion in cash and services. And to keep the costs down, Calgary could use Whistler's facilities to host the ski jump, and all Nordic combined in Edmonton's Rogers Place for hockey and curling events. The bid's not yet been finalized or proposed, but this marks a big step forward for the city. And finally, let's go all the way to Korea for an Olympic bid, talking about world peace. South Korea considering a bold plan to host the 2032 Summer Olympics, joining with North Korea. Joint bid would require significant logistics, but great strides toward achieving regional peace. The proposal will call for Seoul and Pyongyang to host the summer's events. The cities separated by about 120 miles only, and the South and North intend on discussing a bid later this month at the third summit in the North Korean capital. If awarded the 2032 bid, it would mark yet another Games being held in the Asian Pacific. South Korea hosted this year's Winter Games in Pyeongchang and Tokyo 2020 for the Summer Games, Beijing preparing for 2022 Winter Games. And in addition, Seoul sports ministers noted the country's interest in co-hosting the 2030 World Cup alongside China, North Korea, and Japan. If it's a step toward world peace, it's really fantastic. Well, we'd like to thank Tanner Simpkins and Dan Martin for putting this together with us today, and like to thank Pete Ward for giving us some NFL perspective, and like to thank you for listening and watching, and hopefully next week you'll join us when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.